Well, for more on this, we're joined from Washington, D.C. by the AG1 correspondent, Kate Fisher. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kate. What are you hearing from officials in Washington about the US's response to the mine tanker and the 6 vessels Iran turned back in Hormuz?
Well, here in Washington, I think there is actually real concern about the direction of the war in terms of the US's ability to continue with this conflict militarily. And the Strait of Hormuz clearly has become the main area where Donald Trump has his biggest concerns, given the fact that it directly affects the pockets of Americans who are trying to keep their houses cool with air conditioning and fill up their cars with fuel. And given the fact that the problems around the Strait of Hormuz in getting the oil and gas in and out of there have been essentially stopped by this conflict. Of course, a problem that wasn't even part of the initial reason that the US decided to begin this. And in terms of what the US is wanting to do now, they have stopped those. There's certainly been a pause in the military aggression over the weekend, and there have been murmurings reported here about how several members of Donald Trump's senior military advisors are concerned about continuing military operations there. General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, according to reporting in the New York Times, has said that he has real concerns about returning to major combat operations because of a serious depletion of anti-missile interceptors. J.D. Vance, the vice president, also apparently advising President Trump on Friday that he doesn't think he should continue with these large military operation with Iran. And then Axios reporting that the CENTCOM commander, Bradley Cooper, saying that he would recommend to stop bombing areas around the Strait of Hormuz because he says essentially they have now hit all the relevant targets around there. But clearly there is still a conflict going on, and that hasn't worked in terms of getting Iran to, give back control of the Strait of Hormuz to a kind of global international waters. Those bombings from the US not having the desired effect that Donald Trump wants to see.
And is there any indication the administration is preparing new military or diplomatic moves, given Trump's decision and declaration on the MOU with Iran is over?
Yeah, well, we have heard what I just spoke about with mostly reporting of anonymous sources in news outlets here, but we have heard directly from one member of the Trump administration over the weekend, the US ambassador to the United Nations, Mike Waltz, who said that he believes this pause in military action in Iran is to give some for negotiations. He believes there is now some diplomacy happening behind the scenes, and that the pause in the military aggression is to give that some time to take shape. But he also said that the US does have everything it needs militarily should it decide to restart those bomb missions, those airstrikes again on Iran. But at the same time, in this interview over the weekend, he did acknowledge the fact that there was a depletion in US munitions, essentially blaming the Biden administration, saying that US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth had inherited an already depleted stockpile from the Biden administration, blaming it on the Biden administration giving weapons to Ukraine and also taking action against the Houthis in the Red Sea. So a tacit acknowledgement there that there was a concern within the US government that they don't have sufficient stockpiles of munitions to continue this. And of course, I mentioned the Red Sea there. That has become potentially another front in this war that maybe it would appear anyway that the US military hadn't envisaged when it began this.
And just how are the oil markets and energy officials in Washington reacting to the rising prices tied to the Hormuz disruptions?
Yeah, well, you've seen the oil prices rising once again, which, does nothing to soothe the concerns of the Trump administration. They know that they have to go. Many of their Republican lawmakers are up for election or re-election come November. And the rise in prices for people filling up their cars at the petrol station, the filling station, and heating and cooling their homes is having a negative effect on Donald Trump's approval ratings. And that will in turn affect how well his Republican lawmakers are going to do in these elections, given the fact that lawmakers and potential lawmakers are speaking to their constituents in the run-up to these elections, and they will be having to answer these difficult questions to them about why this war is continuing when it is having a negative effect on the US. And of course, when oil prices go up, it affects all of the US markets, and that is a concern for the American people who are concerned about the cost of living. It's their biggest concern going into these elections. And the current policy when it comes to this war is making that harder for them, making things more expensive, and therefore having a negative effect on the way they view Donald Trump and his Republican Party.
And Kate, any word from the State Department on the Ukrainian strike on the Iranian vessel? Is Washington being drawn into that angle at all?
We haven't had any response from the State Department as yet, but we, of course, know that President Zelensky of Ukraine will be in Washington, D.C. tomorrow, Tuesday. He, along with Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, will be in the city to attend the funeral of Senator Lindsey Graham, who died recently and was a big friend of both Israel and Ukraine, believed thoroughly in US military intervention abroad, and both these men are coming to pay their respects. So President Zelensky here tomorrow, and therefore I think we're likely to get more reaction from him as well as the United States on what's happening in the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate the time.